Hello and welcome to Being Prodigy. Now put on your headphones and start learning. To get special study material, just contact us through the link in the description.
Women and children were often singled out for such advice. They were seen as easily corruptible. Some parents kept novels in the lofts in their houses, out of their children's reach. Young people often read them in secret. This passion was not limited only to the youth. Older women, some of whom could not read, listened with fascinated attention to popular Tamil novels read out to them by their grandchildren, a nice reversal of the familiar grandma's tales. But women did not remain mere readers of stories written by men. Soon they also began to write novels. In some languages, the early creations of women were poems, essays or autobiographical pieces. In the early decades of the 20th century, women in South India also began writing novels and short stories. A reason for the popularity of novels among women was that it allowed for a new conception of womanhood. Stories of love, which was a staple theme of many novels, showed women who could choose or refuse their partners and relationships. It showed women who could to some extent control their lives. Some women authors also wrote about women who changed the world of both men and women. Rokia Hussain (1880–1932) was a reformer who, after she was widowed, started a girls' school in Calcutta. She wrote a satiric fantasy in English called Sultana's Dream, 1905, which shows a topsy-turvy world in which women took the place of men. Her novel Padmarag also show the need for women to reform their condition by their own actions. It is not surprising that many men were suspicious of women writing novels or reading them. This suspicion cut across communities. Hannah Mullins, a Christian missionary and the author of Karunayo Fulmanirbaburan, 1852, reputedly the first novel in Bengali, tells her readers that she wrote in secret. In the 20th century, Sailabila Ghoshajaya, a popular novelist, could only write because her husband protected her. As we have seen in the case of the South, women and girls were often discouraged from reading novels. Caste practices, lower castes and minorities. As you have seen, Injulekha was a love story, but it was also about an issue that was hotly debated at the time when the novel was written. This concerned the marriage practices of upper caste Hindus in Kerala, especially the Nambuthiri Brahmins and the Nairs. Nambuthiris were also major landlords in Kerala at that time, and a large section of the Nairs were their tenants. In late 19th century Kerala, a younger generation of English-educated Nair men who had acquired property and wealth on their own, began arguing strongly against Nambuthiri alliances with Nair women. They wanted new laws regarding marriage and property. The story of Anjulekha is interesting in the light of these debates. Suri Nambuthiri, the foolish landlord who comes to marry Anjulekha, is the focus of much satire in the novel. The intelligent heroine rejects him and chooses Madhavan, the educated and handsome Nair, as her husband, and the young couple move to Madras, where Madhavan joins the civil service. Suri Nambuthiri, desperate to find a partner for himself, finally marries a poorer relation from the same family and goes away pretending that he has married Anjulekha. Chandu Menon clearly wanted his readers to appreciate the new values of his hero and heroine and criticize the ignorance and immorality of Suri Nambuthiri.
This is Being Prodigy. To get special study material, just contact us through the link in the description. And please subscribe to show your support.
Novels like Indirabai and Anjulekha were written by members of the upper castes, and were primarily about upper caste characters. But not all novels were of this kind. Pothari Kunjambu, a lower caste writer from North Kerala, wrote a novel called Saraswati Vijayam in 1892, mounting a strong attack on caste oppression. This novel shows a young man from an untouchable caste, leaving his village to escape the cruelty of his Brahmin landlord. He converts to Christianity, obtains modern education, and returns as the judge in the local court. Meanwhile, the villagers, thinking that the landlord's men had killed him, file a case. At the conclusion of the trial, the judge reveals his true identity, and the Nambuthiri repents and reforms his ways. Saraswati Vijayam stresses the importance of education for the upliftment of the lower castes. From the 1920s, in Bengal too, a new kind of novel emerged that depicted the lives of peasants and low castes. Advaita Mala Burmans, 1914–1951, Tidashakti Nader Nam, 1956, is an epic about the Mallas, a community of fisher folk who live off fishing in the river Tidash. The novel is about 3 generations of the Mallas, about their recurring tragedies in the story of Ananta, a child born of parents who were tragically separated after their wedding night. Ananta leaves the community to get educated in the city. The novel describes the community life of the Mallas in great detail, their Holi and Kali Puja festivals, boat races, Baishali songs, their relationships of friendship and animosity with the peasants and the oppression of the upper castes. Slowly the community breaks up and the Mallas start fighting amongst themselves as new cultural influences from the city start penetrating their lives. The life of the community and that of the river is intimately tied. Their end comes together. As the river dries up, the community dies too. While novelists before Berman had featured low castes as their protagonists, Tidash is special because the author is himself from a low caste, fisherfolk community. Over time, the medium of the novel made room for the experiences of communities that had not received much space in the literary scene earlier. Vakam Muhammad Bashir, 1908–1994, for example, was one of the early Muslim writers to gain wide renown as a novelist in Malayalam. Bashir had little formal education. Most of his works were based on his own rich personal experience rather than on books from the past. When he was in class 5 at school, Bashir left home to take part in the Salt Satyagraha. Later he spent years wandering in different parts of India and traveling even to Arabia, working in a ship, living with Sufis in Hindu sannyasis, and training as a wrestler. Bashir's short novels and stories were written in the ordinary language of conversation. With wonderful humor, Bashir's novels spoke about details from the everyday life of Muslim households. He also brought into Malayalam writing themes which were considered very unusual at that time: poverty, insanity, and life in prisons.
This is Being Prodigy. To get special study material, just contact us through the link in the description. And please subscribe to show your support.
The Nation and its history. The history written by colonial historians tended to depict Indians as weak, divided, and dependent on the British. These histories could not satisfy the tastes of the new Indian administrators and intellectuals, nor did the traditional Puranic stories of the past, peopled by gods and demons, filled with the fantastic and the supernatural, seem convincing to those educated and working under the English system. Such minds wanted a new view of the past that would show that Indians could be independent-minded and had been so in history. The novel provided a solution. In it, the nation could be imagined in a past that also featured historical characters, places, events and dates. In Bengal, many historical novels were about Marathas and Rajputs. These novels produced a sense of a pan-Indian belonging. They imagined a nation to be full of adventure, heroism, romance and sacrifice, qualities that could not be found in the offices and streets of the 19th century world. The novel allowed the colonized to give shape to their desires. Budeb Mukhopadhyay's, 1827–1894, Angiraya Binoy, 1857, was the first historical novel written in Bengal. Its hero Shivaji engages in many battles against a clever and treacherous Aurangzeb. Mansingh persuades Shivaji to make peace with Aurangzeb. Realizing that Aurangzeb intended to confine him as a house prisoner, Shivaji escapes and returns to battle. What gives him courage and tenacity is his belief that he is a nationalist fighting for the freedom of Hindus. The imagination of the novel was so powerful that it could inspire actual political movements. Bankim's Anandamath, 1882, is a novel about a secret Hindu militia that fights Muslims to establish a Hindu kingdom. It was a novel that inspired many kinds of freedom fighters. Many of these novels also reveal the problems of thinking about the nation. Was India to be a nation of only a single religious community, who had natural claims to belong to the nation? The novel in nation-making imagining a heroic past was one way in which the novel helped in popularizing the sense of belonging to a common nation. Another way was to include various classes in the novel so that they could be seen to belong to a shared world. Premchand's novels, for instance, are filled with all kinds of powerful characters drawn from all levels of society. In his novels you meet aristocrats and landlords, middle-level peasants and landless laborers, middle-class professionals and people from the margins of society. The women characters are strong individuals, especially those who come from the lower classes and are not modernized. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Premchand rejected the nostalgic obsession with ancient history. Instead, his novels look towards the future without forgetting the importance of the past. Drawn from various strata of society, Premchand's characters create a community based on democratic values. The central character of his novel Rangbhumi, the arena, Sirtis, is a visually impaired beggar from a so-called untouchable caste. The very act of choosing such a person as the hero of a novel is significant. It makes the lives of the most oppressed section of society as worthy of literary reflection. We see Sirtis struggling against the forcible takeover of his land for establishing a tobacco factory. As we read the story, we wonder about industrialization and its impact on society and people. Who does it serve? Must other ways of living be sacrificed for it? The story of Sirtis was inspired by Gandhi's personality and ideas. Godin, The Gift of Gau, published in 1936, remains Premchand's best-known work. It is an epic of the Indian peasantry. The novel tells the moving story of Hari and his wife Dania, a peasant couple. Landlords, moneylenders, priests and colonial bureaucrats, all those who hold power in society, form a network of oppression, rob their land and make them into landless laborers. Yet Hari and Dania retain their dignity to the end. Conclusion: we have seen how, over the course of its history in both the West and in India, the novel became part of the lives of different sections of people. Developments in print technologies allowed a novel to break out of its small circle of readers and introduced fresh ways of reading. But through their stories, novels have also shown a capacity to include and focus on the lives of those who were not often known to literate and middle-class circles. We have seen some examples of these in Premchand, but they are equally present in the works of other novelists. Bringing together people from varied backgrounds produces a sense of shared community. The most notable form of this community is the nation. Equally significant is the fact that by bringing in both the powerful and the marginal peoples and cultures, the novel throws up many questions about the nature of these communities. We can say then that novels produce a sense of sharing, and promote an understanding of different people, different values and different communities. At the same time, they explore how different groups begin to question or reflect upon their own identities.
This is Being Prodigy. To get special study material, just contact us through the link in the description. And please subscribe to show your support. Thank you and happy learning.